Good evening.
On the evening of May 30th, 2014, three 12-year-old girls gathered for a sleepover in the small Milwaukee suburb of Keisha. The next morning, authorities found two of the girls, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weir, walking along the highway. They found the third girl in the nearby woods fighting for her life after being stabbed 19 times with a large kitchen knife. As the retreating pair would later confess to authorities, the attack was an act of ritual sacrifice. They intended to murder their classmate in the name of the Slenderman. I wanted proof that he existed, Weir told investigators. I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. I didn't want to find out what would happen if we didn't. She also said that she knew if she didn't follow through with the attack, Slenderman would kill her whole family in 3 seconds. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about the history of the Slenderman. I figure since the movie's coming out pretty soon, I would throw together a little history of Slenderman. So if you guys don't know who he is by now, here you go. The history of Slenderman. Like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster or the Chupacabra, the Slenderman is total fiction, an internet meme blurred by curious minds into something resembling reality. It stands apart from those legendary creatures thanks to the traceable origin. While most monster lore takes hundreds of years to evolve, the being that drove two young girls to attempt murder was born in a matter of weeks. Incubated in well-lit expanses of the internet. Today, the Slenderman thrives across multiple mediums, and with a now streaming HBO documentary on the subject, along with percolating big-screen prospects, has become a prized possession of Hollywood. Still, despite having infinite information at our fingertips and skepticism to match, few know the chilling story that brought us to this moment. This is how the Slenderman evolved from modern myth to a legitimate horror. A ghost in the machine. On June 8th, 2009, a user on the internet culture forum Something Awful started a thread with an implicit challenge: create paranormal images. 2 days later, fellow forum dweller Eric Newstead posted under his alias Victor Surge created the first snapshot of the Slenderman, a faceless, wire-thin, suit-wearing man like Tim Burton's take on Ray Marget's The Son of a Man. In an interview Newstead would give in 2011, he described the influences that led him to now iconic design: Zach Parsons' serialized story, The Insidious Beast, the Stephen King short story, The Mist, The Rake, another monstrous creation devised on Something Awful threads, the paranormal reports of Shadow People, Mothman, and the Mad Gasser of Mattoon. I use these to formulate something that can barely be comprehended and causes general unease and terror in general population, Newstead explained. The captions for Newstead's first pair of Slenderman image, which he claimed only took 15 minutes to create, provided little backstory and loads of intrigue. We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them, but its present silence and outstretched arms horrified and confronted us at the same time. 1983, photographer unknown, presumed dead. One of two recovered photos from the Sterling City Library blaze, notable for being taken the day which 14 children vanished and for what is referred to as Slenderman. Deformities cited as film defects by officials. Fire at a library occurred 1 week later. Actual photograph confiscated as evidence. 1986 photographer Mary Thomas missing since June 13, 1986. 2 days later, another Something Awful user, LeechCode5, uploaded 2 images of Slenderman inspired by the original post. The captions pegged the creature as a predator of human children. Photo is of an elementary school fire in 1978. No official cause was ever found. 7 students and a teacher became trapped and died before firefighters could respond. Many of the students and teachers from the time have a history of anxiety disorders and panic attacks, even those who weren't at school on that day. At least one has since committed suicide, and several others legally changed their names once they reached adulthood and have disappeared. Hearing the cries of a rabid audience, Newstead produced additional Slenderman photos. A photo dubbed Stainman Woods would establish the creature's presence in the woods and a timeless instinct for malice. 2007, investigation team discovered 22 bodies of both genders and various ages impaled on a broken tree branch in a radiating circle pattern with chest mutilation as often noted with Slenderman. Upon confirmation, lead investigator called for an immediate evacuation of investigation team at 1700 hours. Bodies first discovered at 1100 hours. Deadline for the safe evacuation of team with only viewed physical evidence of Slenderman at approximately 1730. Lost contact of team at 1725. Safety procedures fell within established protocols. Reason for abnormality is unknown. Second team recovered camera equipment 1 week later. Slenderman safety procedures require this incident's physical photographic evidence to be disposed of by no later than 10:20. The Something Awful community latched onto Newsted's photos. A user named 21st Century imaged Slenderman as an agaric novel in the vein of Mark Z. Danielewski's House of Leaves. User Trench Mall linked it to an actual 1959 hiking incident in the Ural Mountains where 9 people died, 6 of hypothermia, 3 of mysterious bodily trauma, earning Slender Pass a casual mention on the Dial of Past Incident Wikipedia page. The pile on manipulative images and false documentation eventually discovered the Slenderman's ties into the Something Awful forums. Anyone who Googled the Slenderman lore would find offshoot sites and stray blogs filled with connections and the references in actual mythology. Many wondered if Germany's 16th century monster Der Grobman, aka the Great Man, a spindly creature rumored to stalk the deepest parts of the forest, was the actual Slenderman. Sure, why not? Newsted had created a monster. An urban legend requires an audience ignorant of the origin of the legend, he said in an interview. It needs unverifiable third and fourth hand or more accounts to perpetrate the myth. Internet memes are finky things, and by making something at the right place and time, it could swell into an internet urban legend. Out of the shadows and into the spotlight, the meme swelled. Just a month after Newsted's first images, University of Alabama students Troy Wagner and Joseph DeLange launched Marble Hornets, a Blair Witch-like found footage web series. Their antagonist, the Operator, a dimensional version of Slenderman, realized on a $500 budget. Pushing through copycats and a bevy of fanfiction, Wager and DeLange produced 26 episodes of Marble Hornets through June 2014, earning enough of a cult following to sell the concept off for a movie, Always Watching a Marble Hornets story. Programmer Mark Haley was one of the hooked. Inspired by Marble Hornets and a streak of second-person YouTube videos of people playing horror video games, Haley released Slender, later retitled Slender the 8 Pages, a first-person survival game where players wander through a forest in search of Slenderman-themed manuscript. Stalking you as you search is the Faceless Being. Linger too long in one spot and he gets you. Find all 8 pages and he gets you. The simple explanation is that there really is no story of the game, Hadley said in a 2012 interview. I left out a lot of the backstory in the internet of making a short horror experience rather than a full storyline. I think it's creepier to leave things up to the imagination of the players. The commitment to mystery allowed Slenderman to persist as a mythic ghost story, and creepypasta Winky became a hotbed for the fiction. Copypasta was the copy-paste 4chan gave to the collecting of short stories from around the internet. Creepypasta was the subsection that fostered sourceless urban legends like the Tall Man, a story claiming to be an old Roman folktale. It wasn't. In Tall Man, a family Slenderman encounter ends with the mother urging one of the daughters to kill the other. When the sister refuses, she runs back to her home to tell the father, who heads to the woods to hunt down the creature. The lone sister remains at the house and hears a heavy knocking at the door. I am your mother, said the knocker, and I told you it would be worse. And the door, locked tight before her father left, fell open as it had been left ajar. And the mother stepped in, her sister's head clutched in one bloody hand, her father's in the other. Why, whem Serena? Because, said her mother, there is no reward for goodness, there is no respite for faith, there is nothing but cold steel teeth and syringing fire for all of us, and it's coming for you now. And the tall man slid from the fire and clenched Serena in his burning embrace, and that was the end of her. The Slenderman of Marble Hornets in Slender 8 Pages portrays a being who stalks and attacks in service of spine-tingling mood. The creepypasta stories and adaptations launched at the crest of the phenomenon leaned harder into the violence. The web series Tribe 12 gave credence to the idea of the Slender Proxy, a human who serves Slenderman, either drawing victims to the monster's lair or killing, hunting on behalf of the creature. The concept was practical. Slenderman was a character base served when lurking in the shadows, but creators needed actors to actually appear on screen. A more monstrous monster. The most popular of Slender proxies was Tissy Toby, created by Deviant Art user Castaway. Already plagued by mental and physical disorders, Toby witnessed his sister's death at the age of 17 and goes completely over the edge. The voices in his head tell him to kill his father, which he does with a hatchet in front of his mother. The story ends with Toby lighting his neighborhood on fire to cover up his crime. Just before the flames engulf him, Slenderman teleports the boy to safety. Tissy Toby gained popularity in the Slenderverse, particularly among the creepypasta fiction group. At first, Castaway hoped to control his popular character, asking other creepypasta writers not to ship the fandom term for imagining relationships Toby with other characters without his permission. The demand didn't stick. As described in his post, Tiki Toby began falling in love with real people. Like Eric Newstead before him, the creator found the enthusiasm for his creation taking on a life of its own. Mythology documentarians would add Tiki Toby to the Slenderman Connection Wiki to track the character's exploits in May of 2014. 12-year-olds Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weir inhabited the notion of the Slender proxy, though their all-too-real victim alive and well after crawling into the eyeline of a passing biker on that May morning, subverted the fiction. In June or July of 2017, each girl will stand trial as an adult for first-degree intentional homicide. Their lawyers argued for second degree based on their base of mental health. Geyser reportedly suffers from schizophrenia and motivation. The Slenderman would hurt their friends and family if they didn't stab that girl. Nothing can stop the Slenderman. The Slenderverse rode an edge of realism to maximum scares, then threatened over the edge. Geyser and Weir claimed to have learned that Slenderman from the Creepypasta Wiki. Back on the internet, Castaway lashed out the Creepypasta fandom, which had taken to the DeviantArt page and the Tiki Toby Wiki to reveal in the real life proxy incident. The amount of people who think that Tiki Toby's real is absolutely obscure, and I can't bear to think that another incident similar to the Slenderman stabbings is possible because of something I created for fun. Please do not let that happen and take this seriously. It's one thing to enjoy a horror story, it's another thing to get joy from thinking that fictional psychopaths are real and that you're able to interact with them. Since Castaway has effectively closed his DeviantArt page. All the posts, including the original Tiki Toby story, have been removed. Newstead, who thought the creature that never came for the girls, gave a single statement before following Castaway in an immediate blackout. I am deeply saddened by the tragedy in Wisconsin, and my heart goes out to the families of those who are affected by this terrible act. Newstead's DeviantArt page still says Slenderman is under copyright and any future forfeit projects featuring the character require his permission. The mania surrounding the internet's most notorious urban legend grew at an exponential rate fit for the information age, and a recklessness that predicted today's post-information age. The Slenderman is not Bigfoot. The fiction was apparent from the beginning, or was to anyone looking to keep the line between fact and fantasy drawn clearly in the sand. Many don't. Slenderman continues to thrive on creepypasta and internet fiction forums. Monitors shut down comment sections and wiki pages that drive the Slenderverse away from reality. But their authority ends where the websites do. Hollywood continues to feign interest in the subject. HBO's Beware the Slenderman documentary sheds more light on the Wisconsin stabbing incident, with Sony Pictures and Screen Gems announced a Slenderman movie, which the company hopes will become a multi-platform property. Slenderman crossed over from the internet to reality swiftly and violently, and nothing apparently can send it back. So there you go, guys. That is the history of the Slenderman. It is very sadistic and very real. A lot of this stuff happened. I remember on the news when they announced about this girl, these girls who stabbed that girl in the woods. Just remember, guys, this is all urban legend and all fake horror stories. So, don't let it get to your head and stuff. But that's going to be it for the video, guys. Make sure you tune into the podcast tomorrow, because tomorrow we're having another podcast, Mindless Horror Podcast. So be sure to tune into that. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I will see you in the next video.